Ladies and gentlemen, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the EyesIsWatchin channel. Well, if you had any doubts as to who owns the US government and has full control over the sock puppet politicians in Washington, I think it's clear as day now. Who has the power to get the US to send its soldiers to die in another Middle Eastern war that doesn't serve the US interests in any way? So right after the Trump administration declared their strikes on Iranian nuclear sites successful, that's right, it was mission accomplished and nothing more needed to be done. Okay, the MAGA crowd even said, see, there was nothing going to happen here. I mean, it wasn't going to be a full-on war with Iran, just a few strikes. Quit fear-mongering, okay? You got TDS. Well, come and collect your Fell For It Again award, people, because the US just launched Operation Epic Fury, aka Operation Epstein Distraction. That's right, a military campaign to eliminate the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, destroy its ballistic missile arsenal, degrade its proxy terror networks, and cripple its naval forces, end quote. I told y'all the US didn't like the burning of Baal in the streets, okay? So Israel and the US are going right back. Oh, you thought it was about nuclear sites, huh? Regime change has been the main priority of Israel for over 50 years now. This is what they wanted done in Iran for decades. This has nothing to do with weapons of mass destruction, obviously. A member of the Israeli Knesset just said this about boots on the ground in Iran. I exclude nothing. We've been waiting for 47 years and we came to a point with every necessary means should be taken to achieve our goals. I mean, what more needs to be said? 47 years to take down Iran. There's a video compilation of Netanyahu for over 30 years saying Iran is weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon. We know this is about a broader agenda, okay? The Greater Israel Project. They're out in the open saying it. Former Israeli PM Naftali Bennett marks Turkey for destruction after Iran. That's right, they're already coming out saying regime change in Turkey is next. So this confirms this is a larger agenda than just Iran. For years, Trump was saying regime change in Iran would be a huge mistake. Here we go.
We must abandon the failed policy of nation building and regime change that Hillary Clinton pushed in Iraq, in Libya, in Egypt, and in Syria.
We want to help them. We'll be good to them. We'll work with them. We'll help them in any way we can, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. We're not looking, by the way, for regime change, because some people say we're looking for regime change. We're not looking for regime change. I've watched President Obama and many other presidents try that. Doesn't work out too well.
Oh, would you look at that? See how fast things change? I mean, Netanyahu started waving those tapes right in front of Trump. No, you're gonna go to Iran. Okay, we're doing the regime change thing now. You know what's crazy? I think we can determine the exact time Trump got blackmailed by the Epstein tapes, okay? Because around 2012, Trump was tweeting stuff like this. Read it for yourselves, people. I mean, one tweet saying, now that Obama's poll numbers are in a tailspin, watch for him to launch a strike in Libya or Iran. He is desperate. Remember that I predicted a long time ago that President Obama would attack Iran because of his inability to negotiate properly, not skilled. And my favorite of all, Trump's tweet here over 13 years ago, be prepared, there is a small chance that our horrendous leadership could unknowingly lead us into World War III. I mean, he goes from regime change in Iran will be a huge mistake, striking Iran could mean World War III. Haven't we learned from the lessons of Iraq and Libya to now, oh, we need to take out the Iranian government on behalf of Israel immediately. I mean, we need to send American soldiers to die over there. And yes, some have died, but that's just a price Israel's willing to make, okay? Well, ain't that some shit? I mean, is it really a coincidence? The same time more eyes are on this Epstein stuff, they decide to do this now. Prince Andrew arrested, Bill Gates apologizing for doing what he did. I mean, Hillary Clinton was recently at her deposition and she was asked about Pizzagate after the Epstein files dropped. She lost it at the hearing. She slammed the table with her hand and left.
You described Pizzagate as a baseless conspiracy theory, alleging you and others ran a child sex trafficking ring from a Washington pizzeria basement. Have you reviewed any 2025-2026 Epstein files that were released that
This
you
is
believe
wild.
reference or relate to those specific 2016 claims regarding the Podesta emails.
This is wild. First of all, being directly in front of Hillary Clinton and asking her about Pizzagate and a worldwide child trafficking ring. Look at her face right here. Doesn't that say something? I mean, her face definitely lets you know. There's like a blank stare right there. She's like, yeah, that's what we do. You know what I mean? That's how we run countries. What do you think we're doing out here? It's called blackmail, bitch. Get with the program.
Comet Ping Pong Pizza used as code, possibly.
I'm sorry, does
You're
this
asking
relate?
her about whether she's reviewed emails in the Epstein files, which relate to the wacky Pizzagate
You
scandal.
could characterize it however you want. I just would like to know if she's familiar with any of them.
So,
She's
excuse me,
commenting-
your question is about whether or not she has reviewed any emails in the Epstein release files about Pizzagate.
Correct.
Pizzagate was totally made up. It was an outrageous allegation that ended up hurting a number of people, that caused a deranged young man to show up with his assault rifle and shoot up a local pizzeria. I can't believe you're even referencing it. You should be.
There are
Yeah, just, normal emails between Hillary Clinton and Obama talking about 60,000 pizza slices, 80,000 hot dogs, okay? They like them young. The young hot dogs, can you bring the pizza slices and the young hot dogs over? We got a lot of them pizza slices, and I like them young, fresh. We're just talking about pizza. It's like there's clearly something going on, and that's why during all of this, they decide to start a world war. You know what I mean? It's like total chaos to get your mind off of the worldwide trafficking ring, okay? You can't tell me this isn't all connected. It's the perfect timing. I have to say the psy-ops we're about to see this year will be unlike anything we've ever seen, okay? From total world chaos. I don't want to say world war because I think a lot of these leaders are truly given a script and playing their roles here. The more you look into it, the more you will be convinced. And the alien stuff, I always told you guys, the more eyes are on this Epstein stuff, they always throw out some alien BS because it's like the ultimate final card distraction. Okay, why are you even talking about a worldwide child trafficking ring? I mean, we have aliens about to invade Earth. Okay, no one will care about any kind of crimes against humanity, whether it's about vaccines or child trafficking rings, if alien motherships are hovering above the White House. Okay, that's why they're setting up the foundation right now. There's so many psyops taking place. They're saying all of these scientists are being taken out, executed, assassinated, that have direct ties to alien programs and UFO programs. Are you guys not seeing all of these headlines pop up like this? I believe this is the foundation being set for the next psyop. So a lot of people will think, oh, there's something behind this. Why are they being taken out? Maybe alien disclosure is coming next and they're trying to stop these scientists from telling the truth. All of it is theater, including the idea of a world war. A lot of these leaders in charge here are simply playing their roles and they're all puppets. There won't be a world war because they all work together. Many world leaders are compromised and won't do a damn thing to stop Israel. I mean, for example, Putin last year was asking about defending Iran if a war popped off, okay? Would he attack Israel? And his response was interesting. He said this: Israel today is almost a Russian-speaking country. 2 million people from the Soviet Union and Russia live there. We take that into account. Isn't that interesting? Look, I don't know if I can trust any one of these people, but isn't it interesting how they pulled this off in Iran? First it was just a quick strike on nuclear sites, in quotes, of course, nuclear sites, whatever they even did. Can we even trust that they did that? Then they said, mission accomplished, we're out of here. We did it. We set them back years. They're not going to build any nuclear weapons, so-called nukes, anytime soon. They were done. Had everyone thinking it was over. Then they crack down harder and go full speed ahead with the agenda. And I have to say, I know for a fact behavioral psychologists are advising some of these world leaders on how to conduct certain events, okay, or even the restrictions that should be imposed. There's a way to do this. There's a method to the madness. Think back to the same exact psychological conditioning as COVID. What happened during COVID? That's how you know the same demons are behind it all, okay? So first a short strike, just temporary, just like the masks and restrictions. It's all about easing the people into it, never the full and complete agenda all at once because the pushback would be too intense. So what do? slowly condition the people that whatever war is going on is totally justified and never ending. Most importantly, the war is meant to be continuous because, as many of you know, a perpetual, unwinnable war is a critical tool for maintaining a totalitarian society's structure. First, temporary and optional. Then once you get used to the idea, they add another layer of restrictions and rules. If the vast majority fail the first test, it lets the pedos in charge know they can continue on with more insanity. More of your rights taken away, more control, more censorship. They brainwash the people through repetitive language like war on terror, terrorist regime, dictatorship, weapons of mass destruction, slowly conditioning the people with nonstop propaganda to let the ideas circulate in one's mind. Just one strike, then they leave. Then they gauge the public's reaction. Were they okay with the first strike? Was there any major pushback? Nope. Okay, then in a few months, they'll go right back and complete the rest of the agenda. The same with COVID. We're all in this together. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Mask up for only a few weeks. Oh, there's going to be a shot, but it's not going to be mandatory. It's not like you're going to need it to keep your job or anything. See how the same thing keeps playing out here? Trump goes from saying no new wars to, okay, wars, but just a few days long, maybe 4 weeks to slow the spread. And of course, that turns into another forever war. Donald Rumsfeld said himself after 9/11 in 2002, when discussing attacking Iraq, in quotes, 5 days or 5 weeks or 5 months. But it certainly isn't going to last any longer than that. That's right, people. Oh, and September 10th, $2 trillion goes missing from the Pentagon. Then the plane, in quotes, hits the exact place where they're doing the investigation of the missing $2 trillion. See how it works? Look, the truth is, if we want change, the moment we see government overreach or something we don't like, totalitarian methods of control, we must show out in full force, letting the pedos in charge know, oh, hell no, we're not putting up with this shit. Over my cold, dead, lifeless body will I comply with your BS. That would have the demons pull back a little, okay? But unfortunately, the majority of people are sheeples, and that won't happen. But for the zinger of the century, folks, you got to give it up for the absolute roast response of the week on X, because Congressman Ro Khanna posted a photo with Thomas Massie, 2 U.S. representatives, different parties, same basic position here. No war with Iran and justice for Epstein survivors. Pretty reasonable stuff, right? Ro tweets, it is still possible to cross the aisle in America, together with Thomas Massie at the State of the Union for justice for Epstein survivors and no war in Iran. Seems bipartisan, okay? That seems pretty normal. Then journalist Emily Schrader quote tweets it with, as long as you hate Jews, am I right? Basically implying the only reason these two agree is some shared anti-Semitic bond. And that's when Thomas Massie drops the zinger of the century. Big props to him for this one. So exposing a global child sex trafficking ring is now anti-Semitic? Gotcha. Damn. So apparently opposing another Middle East war and wanting accountability for Epstein's victims now automatically puts you on some hate list. That escalation happened real fast. You go from no war to, wow, you must hate Jews in one tweet cycle. Incredible work. So first they neutralize dissent, shame anyone with labels like anti-Semitic, trying to shut people down with labels like that, then slowly build their way up into a full-scale conflict. See how it works? But first, a few targeted airstrikes at first, like an appetizer. Then if the sheeples accept that, the DICs know they can continue on with their mission. And in this case, the Greater Israel Project. Once again, whose agenda is this really? Maybe that should be a segment here, okay? Maybe we should start a show called Whose Agenda Is It Really? It's gonna be like Whose Line Is It Anyway, but for exposing the demons in charge. Well, if you had any doubt as to who owns these sellouts, check this out. Looks like Trump just got some new Israeli intelligence leaked to him because about a month ago, after a recent visit from Netanyahu, he said this: he will wipe Iran off the face of the earth if assassination threats are carried out. So let me get this straight. We apparently vaporized the entire Iranian leadership, but relax, guys, this definitely wasn't about regime change. In fact, Secretary of War Hegseth even says this is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change. Like, what? Yeah, I guess that's a totally different thing then. You couldn't find a better example of doublespeak anywhere. Like, look, we didn't want regime change, but after killing everybody in the government, the regime just so happened to change. Like a twisted evil villain given that dark punchline, the US-Israel strikes killed the Ayatollah, allegedly, okay? And allegedly his daughter and grandchild were among many that were killed, including his wife as well, many others. Also, an Israeli rocket, which they say was meant for the IRGC base about 600 meters away from the school, apparently the rocket misfired and hit an all-girls school, killing about 150 people. The evil is truly unconscionable. And we have Hexeth cracking jokes about this like he just destroyed the enemies in a video game. Think back to George Bush on stage doing a little stand-up comedy routine, talking about, oops, no weapons of mass destruction over here. Oops, no WMDs over here. It's like they're joking now about it. Millions dead, thousands of troops killed. It's all a joke to them because they know it's you that will be sacrificed, not their children. Netanyahu's son is chilling, but they want you to go die for Israel. Now check this right here. I gotta give props to X right here for this fact check because this is fact checking done right. This is what I like about fact checking if it's done right. The community notes are absolute gold here. Hexeth said, "We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we will finish it." Fact check says this: the US and Israel's combined forces did in fact preemptively strike Iran first, while talks were still in progress. Ooh-wee! Very rarely do I give props to community notes, but wow. I mean, the nerve of these demons saying they didn't start the war. Fact check, yes, you did. We didn't want regime change, but the regime sure did change. Wink, wink. It's like 150 girls killed in an all-girls school, and you're making jokes like that? Just a few days ago, Netanyahu visited the Beit Shemesh site where an Iranian rocket killed 9 people, allegedly, saying Iran would threaten all of humanity with nuclear weapons. So we supposedly erased their nuclear program off the map, but we also needed to go back and strike them again because of the nuclear program we just erased? What's crazy is the Trump administration has said many times Iran wasn't planning to hit the US, but also they were planning to do so at the same time, depending on who you asked. They change the story every few hours, it seems like. Looks like the Iranian regime is oppressing their people and need to be removed. Like, okay, so who will replace this regime? The US and Israel just shrug and say, well, we hope it's not an even more intolerant Islamic regime. We just hope, It's like the same exact thing they did in Iraq, and they're doing it again. They have no clear plan, people. They haven't said anything like that. I mean, they haven't discussed any clear end game here. They just want to overthrow the government and hope for the best again. But the truth is, they know exactly what will happen. We have endless examples of this not working across the Middle East. We know their main plan is to destabilize regions. And from what it looks like, the strikes were launched without any clearly defined end game. The assumption seems to be that removing leadership would trigger collapse. Meanwhile, Iran, after decades of preparing for this exact scenario, appears to have built a coordinated response targeting regional bases, threatening the Strait of Hormuz, and forcing the US into difficult choices about who and what it protects. If the reports about escalating losses and regional fallout are accurate, this could spiral really fast. And we have Britain threatening to join the war on Iran too. So basically, Iraq 2.0 is really playing out here in live time. I can't believe it. Make America George Bush again, like I said. Britain just a few weeks ago warning its own citizens that Russia could attack them by 2030 as well. The fear-mongering is so clear here. They need a terrified population because a scared population is easier to control. There's an enemy out there and they could attack us at any moment. The real enemy is in your government, and they're attacking you right now. Multifaceted depopulation plots, injections, big pharma medication, only designed to kill and weaken, government aerosol programs, constant spraying over the skies, poison in your food and water supply. We know who the real enemy is, and they're not in Iran. We all knew this war on Iran was inevitable, okay? Because just before the strikes took place, Trump was screaming, they're gonna assassinate me. And the MSM was publishing articles like, Iran has been rapidly loading an unusually high amount of oil onto tankers, possibly in preparation for a looming US attack. So even they knew, apparently. Then J.D. Vance, Mr. Palantir poster boy, says this right here. We've seen evidence. Iran is trying to rebuild nuclear weapons. Oh, okay. What happened to those successful strikes? Now they're suddenly rebuilding nuclear weapons. Now they're all of a sudden just weeks away from another nuke. It's like the same exact BS. Apparently those strikes set back Iran's nuclear program years, right? And now suddenly they're building new nuclear sites as we speak. Then Marco Rubio says everyone should know that Iran poses a very grave threat to the United States and has for a very long time. Really? Did Iran strike the US? Last I remember, they sent missiles to Israel in response to their own military and senior nuclear scientists being assassinated with their families. Truly despicable stuff. And now Marco Rubio says the president made the very wise decision. We knew there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them first, we would suffer higher casualties. So let me get this straight. We knew Israel was going to act. We knew that would trigger retaliation. We knew American troops would then be in the line of fire. And instead of de-escalating, the solution was to strike first. Doesn't that sound like he's letting you know exactly who's in charge? Like saying, look, Israel was going to attack either way, which would have put Americans in harm's way. So we might as well just join them in toppling another foreign government like international law doesn't even exist. So the US's greatest ally just went ahead with a plan that puts US lives at risk to accomplish their own goals. Is that still an ally? And Trump, of course, is trying to act like this was all his plan, has nothing to do with Israel. He says this.
Israel forced your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand.
Oh.
You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people, people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact.
Okay. So this was really Trump's plan. It had nothing to do with Israel. That statement is in direct contradiction with what Marco Rubio just said. Marco Rubio just said Israel was going to attack first, which would have put American lives at risk, so we just decided to go ahead and do it. What does that tell you? He also says Iran can make over 100 ballistic missiles a month. We can only make 6 or 7 interceptor units and the thousands of one-way attack drones. So think about how crazy that is. So the United States knew this and they still went ahead with the strikes, knowing they had American bases all around the Middle East, knowing full well that Iran would attack their bases, killing many people. And we do have reports of this happening. At least 6 U.S. service members have been killed because of these strikes. Israel is directly responsible for these lives lost, okay? And all Trump has to say about this is, well, more people are going to die for sure, too. More American lives are going to be lost. But, that's the price we got to pay. Because, of course, he is a MK Ultra subject that is in full control by Netanyahu, like this video.
Must attack Iran. Iran threatens America. Wait, we destroyed Iran's nuclear sites. How is Iran still a threat to America? Ayatollah, dictator, oppressing civilians. Okay, but why is that America's problem? Why do we care what's happening inside Iran? Radical Islam spreading. America threatened. What? We need to focus on our own hemisphere. Israel, America's friend. America needs Israel.
That's funny. Yeah, basically, that's what's happening. Trump says you'll be finding out very soon who's in charge of Iran. Yeah, and we'll be finding out very soon who's in charge of Trump. And all Trump has to say is, well, more people are going to be killed for sure. That's just the way things go. Netanyahu says if no action was taken now, no action could be taken in the future. They could target America. They could blackmail America, he says. You needed a resolute president like Donald J. Trump to take that action. That's right, you heard it from the man himself. Look, if anyone's going to be blackmailing America, it's Netanyahu, okay? Never ends with the warmongering loons right here. Lindsey Graham is now demanding that Trump helps Israel with their airstrikes in Lebanon. This is insane. So Turkey, Lebanon, I mean, it's endless. They just want the whole Middle East owned by Israel, as we all know. I can't tell anymore if Lindsey Graham is blackmailed or he's genuinely a psychotic demon with bloodlust. I don't know. What do you guys think? Clearly, there's some kind of memo that goes around to all these political shills and podcast shills too. Never forget, Ben Zion Man Shapiro was foaming at the mouth talking about bombing Iran just a few weeks ago. He was on video urging Trump to strike Iran, saying that if he doesn't, the real consequences will fall on Israel, which will have to build up its military to defend itself. Ben in support of another Middle Eastern war. You don't say. After all, this is the same man that was writing pieces like this on how war with Iraq is good for America. Yep, he did write that. So right after Marco Rubio admits Israel forced U.S. into war with Iran, in quotes, it's the worst possible thing. I mean, what do you think is happening here and who's behind all these wars? Hey, Mel Gibson, let him know.
How horrible does he think they were? I read to him the officer's account of the words he used that night. Expletive Jews. And to Officer me, are you a Jew? And
the Jews are responsible for all the wars in the world. Are those anti-Semitic words?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How horrible does...
The way he said, yeah, it was like, yeah, but, it's still the truth. That's kind of the look he gave her. How can people fall for the same he's a dictator, oppressive regime, weapons of mass destruction BS? Thousands of U.S. soldiers killed, millions of innocent people displaced and killed because of this war on terror. Trillions spent, leaving America drowning in debt. And here's Trump admitting it.
We've spent $8 trillion in the Middle East, and we're not fixing our roads in this country? How stupid is it? And we're not fixing our highways, our tunnels, our bridges, our hospitals even, our schools even. It's crazy.
And now we're starting a war with Iran. A couple more trillion won't hurt anybody. How much do you think this is costing right now, if you had to guess? And if this war continues, which it will, for another year, 2 years, 3 years, how much money would that cost America? I mean, that would guarantee a financial collapse very soon. I mean, $38 trillion in debt already. And now they want to spend a couple trillion more for this one, destroying every Middle Eastern nation they touch. So it's never a case of remove an oppressive government and suddenly the people are free and living in paradise. It's quite the opposite every single time. Okay, from Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria. I mean, how many examples do we have of intervention not working? Trump even admitted it himself. But this time it's different, right?
I will tell you, you're not going to have a war with me, and you're not going to have a third world war with me. That I can tell you.
Oh, that's funny. Now, I want to make it very clear, I'm not supporting the Iranian government in any way. I mean, I believe all these government officials in almost every nation are corrupt to their core. Ayatollah was getting the COVID vaccine on camera, and he was telling all of his Iranian people to run and get it, okay? It's going to save your life from COVID, just like Putin, just like the rest of them. Like I said, a great litmus test is, are they promoting the COVID vax to their own people? How could they? I mean, it's obvious it was poison. Operation Warp Speed, signed off by Trump? The Ayatollah in Iran using those same shots on his own citizens? Does any of this make any sense? What I have a problem with is pathological liars and controlled puppets in our government. It's scary to know that so many are blackmailed or paid off to serve the interests of foreign nations, toppling governments with no clear plan as to what happens next. Trump on Iran, okay, his own words, starting from 2012.
I predict there's a very good chance that we'll end up in a war with Iran, because I think it's politically possibly a positive for Obama.
I think he's going to start a war with Iran, and that'll be short-term popular. And he went from very popular to not popular at all.
No more wars, no more disruptions. I am the candidate of peace. I am peace. Undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to destroy their missiles, annihilate their Navy. 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action, and sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is.
That's the way it is, huh? So lessons from Iraq, Libya, nothing has been learned at all, huh? Who is behind this? I mean, how does this serve the U.S. interest in any way? Iran was a direct threat to the U.S. Were they? Have they attacked the U.S.? Who replaces the government there now? Well, I'll let Charlie Kirk tell it.
Western forced central planning regime change is if we are just going to take out the Ayatollah. Oh, really? What comes next? What comes after regime change? Might be, oh, well, we need a small number of U.S. troops to support the new regime. We have seen this play before. Regime change, you have no idea how this is going to work out. You have no idea.
He said it himself, and he does make a great point. Who comes after? One thing's for sure. It's going to be a more LGBT-friendly government. No matter what, we can guarantee that. Here are the two possible outcomes. A more intolerant Islamic regime, 1,000 times worse, or a total collapse of the government, inviting a more LGBT-friendly government. Which one's worse? Ask yourself which one's worse, considering a former BC school trustee ordered to pay $750,000 for hate speech, discrimination, Human Rights Tribunal says here in BC. This man apparently for 5 years publicly denigrated the LGBTQ people and teachers and associated them with the worst forms of child abuse. He has to pay $750,000 now. Okay, these are the people in charge of our governments. Iran needs this kind of government right here, okay? They need a more LGBT-friendly government. They need a Canadian government over there. So anyone that misgenders somebody got to pay $1 million. This is so much better than the Islamic regime, okay? Now, what comes next? Because Secretary of War Hegseth says the U.S. is ready for possible Iranian sleeper cell attacks on U.S. soil. So bombing Iran just opened the door for more psy-ops to be conducted to build more support for this Iran war. Isn't that interesting? False flags to be done, killing more Americans. Also, Americans can support Israel's war. Never forget Operation Northwoods, okay? The memo was declassified showing the CIA wanted to stage and commit acts of terrorism against U.S. military and civilian targets, and then blame them on the Cuban government to justify starting a war with Cuba. We know they do these things, okay? Constant false flags in order to accelerate whatever agenda. Fun fact, in one of the Epstein emails, we see an interesting exchange right here. Epstein speculating that Trump, if cornered like a rat, could trigger a larger conflict, including bombing Iran to create a crisis and rally public support. And he didn't just say bomb Iran, he said we only had 2,000 troops there and they'd be slaughtered if that happened. 2,000. That's pretty specific, okay? Now, fast forward, the U.S. and Israel bomb Iran, and now officials admit they expect retaliation on American forces? Was Epstein just having a normal back and forth conversation about geopolitics with his friend, or was he basically laying out the exact plan that will happen since Trump is fully compromised? I mean, that's what it looks like here. Here's what they're laying out, whether they admit it or not. Killing the supreme leader in Iran doesn't collapse the system. Okay, it's not going to change much. The IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC runs operations and they've been preparing for a U.S. strike for decades. The plan now isn't instant regime change, it's sustained coordinated pressure. Israel handles urban strikes and assassinations. The U.S. hits silos, naval assets, large military infrastructure. They're degrading missile capacity, weakening the repression apparatus. Then they wait. Okay, the expectation is that once enough leadership and mid-level command is gone, internal opposition rises. Maybe signaled, maybe encouraged, maybe just triggered by momentum. That means defections, crackdowns, local clashes, chaos in the streets, fights over cities and key institutions. And even if the top collapses, mid-level IRGC elements and armed factions don't disappear overnight. They fragment and they still keep the fight going, okay? There is no such thing as a clean regime replacement, okay? It's another one of these power vacuum struggles that's gonna take place soon. Now tell me how that doesn't sound like Iraq or Libya, you know, Saddam gone, Gaddafi gone. Did stability follow? Did paradise come to the Iraqis? Afghanistan, Syria, same pattern. Remove the head and watch militias and proxies fill the gap. It's never oppression ends and paradise begins, it's destabilization every time. And again, I'm not defending Tehran, okay? I'm not defending the Islamic regime there. Corruption runs deep everywhere, people. That's not the issue. The issue is the idea that toppling governments without a grounded, enforceable post-collapse plan magically produces freedom. It doesn't. It makes countries descend into a Mad Max state. Libya brought back slavery, for God's sakes. So what happens next? More strikes, and we're probably going to see a lot more internal chaos. It's going to be a bloodbath soon. Then a long, ugly struggle for control, which we've seen before. Warner just said this: there was no imminent threat to the United States by the Iranians. There was a threat to Israel, and if we equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the US, then we are in uncharted territory. Crazy statement, folks. People are already calling him anti-Semitic for that one. How basic and obvious of a statement is that? I mean, it's just so obvious to say. It's ridiculous. Every time Israel gets hit with a missile now the US got to be involved. Boots on the ground immediately. Remember the prediction made from Albert Pike in the late 1800s? Now, I can't fully confirm who made this prediction because last time I checked, it was forgery. I'm not sure who wrote this exact prediction here. They're saying it was over 100 years old. But even if it wasn't, just listen to what is said in this prediction here. It sounds like exactly what's taking place.
In 1871, a secret society predicted 3 world wars in a detailed letter. The First World War was to allow the society to overthrow the powers of the Tsars in Russia. The conflicts between the British and the Germanic empires were to be used to instigate this war. The Second World War was to be instigated by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. The aim was to destroy Nazism and make political Zionism strong enough to establish a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. The Third World War would be between the political Zionists and Islam. The goal was for the war to be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism would mutually destroy each other, while other nations would be forced into the conflict until they were fully exhausted. In the aftermath, a social cataclysm greater than anyone has ever known would occur.
So World War I was done to destroy monarchies and birth communism. World War II to empower Zionism and establish Israel, which happened. World War III to ignite a clash between Zionism and Islam, triggering the ultimate worldwide collapse. A holy war, if you will. And get this, an advocacy group says it has received over 100 complaints from troops across more than 30 installations, claiming some commanders were telling units the war with Iran is tied to Armageddon and the return of Jesus. One report even says a commander described Trump as being anointed to light this signal fire in Iran as part of God's plan. Didn't George Bush also say God told him to attack Iraq? You know, it's all part of God's plan to kill Iraqis and get American troops killed. One post here says this: active duty military NCO, client's email address withheld. This is a person saying what he saw at the military base. So a commander opened up the combat readiness status, urging us to not be afraid as to what is happening right now with combat operations in Iran. He urged us to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan. And he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelation, referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. He said that President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth. He had a big grin on his face when he said all of this, which made his message seem even more crazy. Our commander would probably be described as a Christian first supporter. He has been this way for a long time, and it makes it clear that he desires all of us under him to become just like him as a Christian. But what he did this morning was so toxic over the line, it shocked many of us in attendance in the ops readiness briefing. I can only tell you that I am Christian, and at least 10 of the others are also Christian. One of the others is Jewish and one is Muslim. I don't know the religious or non-religious status for the other 3 at this time. So a lot of military personnel are reporting their commanders are saying this is Armageddon and this is for the return of Jesus. So when you hear language like that circulating inside the military during an Iran conflict, you have to ask yourself the question, okay, is this just rhetoric from a few individuals, or does it line up perfectly with that prediction about World War III? I'm not sure if it was Albert Pike or not, because this does sound like a religious clash here. The final battle. Senator Blumenthal
I just want to say I am more fearful than ever after this briefing that we may be putting boots on the ground and that troops from the United States may be necessary to accomplish objectives that the administration seems to have, but I also am no more clear on what the priorities are going to be of the administration going forward, whether it is destroying the nuclear capacity of Iran, or simply the missiles, or regime change, or stopping terrorist activities. And
they have no idea.
I think the administration owes it to the American people to have briefings not just for members of Congress, but for the American public.
This is wild, folks. So they don't even have a real plan, but they know boots on the ground are necessary. They don't know if it's about regime change, nuclear sites, but boots on the ground are absolutely necessary. And yeah, a lot more Americans are going to be killed, but you know, that's just how war goes. It's not looking good, folks, because this is the same guy who dodged the Vietnam draft and has received over $1 million in funding by AIPAC. So it's safe to say he's not just worried based on a prediction. He's worried because he knows the actual plan here. He knows where this is going.
Extraordinary. It's known as Operation Epic Fury, which I gotta say is just awesome. The operation names from the administration, top notch. Midnight Hammer was great last year. Operation Epic Fury, yeah, man. Epic Fury.
Oh my God. Warmongering lunatics. They haven't learned their lesson from all these wars in the Middle East.
Actually, those nations that are poor actually have more energy. They're more open and they're more cohesive. All right, so let me give an example. This is what we call the Shahad drones. Shahad drones. Each of these drones costs $50,000 at most, okay? At most. It can go as cheap as $35,000 US. But one of them is $50,000. As you can see, you can fit a lot of these drones to a truck that can go anywhere in Iran, and they can hide anywhere. All right? So the thing to understand is, first of all, these drones are cheap. They're easy to make. They make about 500 a day. Okay? And estimates are about there's 80,000 right now that the Iranians have. So they can go on for a long, long time. Okay? And one of these drones, again, can knock out a desalination plant. It can knock out an oil field. It can knock out a hotel. It can do a lot of damage. Okay? And it's easily transportable. You can hide it anywhere. You can use it from anywhere, okay? And that's what the Iranians are using as an offensive weapon. And how do the Americans defend against this? They use something called a THAAD, right? Right, guys? This is what they use. THAAD. THAAD stands for Thermal High Altitude Air Defense. And they also have like Patriot systems. There's a lot, okay? The thing that you need to know about the system is it's really expensive. This missile, guys, costs $1 million. $1 million. So there's this $50,000 drone coming your way, and you throw a $1 million missile at it, okay? And often these missiles miss, so you have to throw 2 or 3 missiles at it, okay? So you're spending $2 to $3 million on each $50,000 that the Iranians spend. That's kind of silly. Second thing you'll notice is that this thing is really big and really slow. And therefore, you can't really move it around. Therefore, it's pretty easy for the Iranians to spot where this is and attack it. And then when these things blow up, that's a lot of money, guys. Okay? Then you're like, what? But this makes no sense. You know the Iranians have drones. They've had drones for like 10 years. You've also seen drones used in the Russia-Ukraine war to devastating effect. Why don't the Americans know this?
That's interesting. So expensive missiles are being used against cheap drones. U.S. taxpayers' money will be completely drained. And this is what people voted for? Yeah, inflation is about to get a lot worse. Don't mind me, people. I'm just looking for new conspiracy theories since all of them came true. That's right, the CIA just recently republished old declassified material tied to something called Project Artichoke, which was actually one of the earliest Cold War mind control programs, a program where the CIA was studying how to influence human behavior without people even realizing it was happening. This ran through the early 1950s, long before MKUltra, and the documents show that the CIA was studying ways chemicals or drugs could be slipped into everyday life through things like food, drinks, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, even routine medical treatments, and drum roll please, injections. That's right, people. Come collect your Conspiracy Analyst Award because you've been right about everything so far. I mean, this is kind of crazy. It's safe to say we need new conspiracy theories now. They've all come true. Injections designed to change human behavior, to create a more docile and an easier to control population, also through food, drinks, etc. Now, their main goal back then was to change people's emotions and behavior. In quotes, they wanted a population that is more predictable. This same project spoke about using compounds that were meant to create agitation, anxiety, tension, and to keep someone nervous and unstable, while others were designed to push the opposite effect, lowering motivation, inducing hopelessness or emotional exhaustion, so subjects became passive and easier to manage. The documents also go over experimenting with hypnosis, psychological conditioning, sensory manipulation, gases, aerosols, aka chemtrails, and even oxygen deprivation. Basically throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at the human brain to control people's minds. I mean, they discussed it all. Now we have it in writing. This is crazy. They openly discussed testing on prisoners, soldiers, psychiatric patients, people with zero ability to refuse. That's wild because what does that sound like to you? That sounds like mandating injections to people in the military, federal positions, and even healthcare. So the main guinea pigs will be people in these positions because the shots will be mandated for them, meaning they gotta get them or lose their jobs. Crazy how that actually played out. The files show coordination with the Chemical Warfare Division, meaning this program was connected to weapons research and national defense operations. What does that sound like? DARPA. That's right, DARPA is a Department of Defense agency, and their main job is to create transformative technologies for the military. So please explain to me why they were and still are involved in vaccine research and manufacturing. Check out these DARPA documents from 2012. This program right here is called ADEPT, Protect, part of something known as the Pandemic Prevention Platform. And according to DARPA's own material, their goal sounded like something out of Project Artichoke. They wanted to turn the human body itself into a bioreactor, meaning instead of producing medicine in factories, the body becomes the production system. The document explains gene editing, speaking about things like DNA and RNA instructions so cells inside your body manufacture whatever they want. Their stated objective was the ability to respond to emerging biological threats within 60 days. 60 days to design, test, and deploy countermeasures during a pandemic scenario. The document even talks about partnerships with biotech companies, including Moderna, working toward clinical trials using RNA-based medical countermeasures years before COVID ever appeared. They wanted a military-style response to pandemics using mRNA vaccines. And we can trust these DARPA scientists, am I right? I mean, they're totally of sound mind here, because this one right here thinks he was abducted by a 7-foot-tall praying mantis. Yeah, I'm totally fine with him developing their next round of Neuralinks and vaccines. Mr. John Blitch right here. That's right, John, son of a Blitch right here. Nothing to see here, just your average DARPA scientist getting instructions on how to create the next round of poison shots by a literal alien insect. So intelligence programs are involved in manipulating human behavior, and they're doing this alongside chemical warfare divisions. And fast forward a few decades, and you've got the Department of Defense funding technology designed to literally create sheeples. And they even admit they needed global emergencies to pull this off. This wasn't minor either. We're talking huge funding. Billions and billions of dollars into this with military infrastructure behind it. So many records about this have been destroyed and even redacted, so we don't know fully how far this stuff went. Psychological warfare and human behavior programs through vaccines. Can't make this up. Seriously, think about the label the CIA put out, like conspiracy theorist, paranoid tinfoil hat wearer, okay? Turns out by being paranoid and not trusting the government in any way, you're probably perfectly healthy. That's the crazy part. And Project Artichoke turned into MK Ultra. So universities, hospitals, prisons, all of these different people getting experimented on without consent, prisoners, psychiatric patients, soldiers, anyone who couldn't push back, even Whitey Bulger, which is a organized crime boss who led the Winter Hill Gang, an Irish mob group based in the Winter Hill neighborhood of Somerville, Massachusetts. Even he talked about hallucinations, paranoia, complete mental collapse after being dosed during experiments he never agreed to. Intelligence agencies were openly researching ways to chemically and psychologically influence perception, emotion, decision-making. Then large parts of the evidence just disappeared. And how is this not the biggest bombshell story of the century? The question is, did Project Artichoke actually play out decades later? Because now an article is reporting on a study claiming COVID mRNA vaccines were associated with a serious increase in neurological and psychiatric events. Reports involving violent behavior, suicidal thoughts, homicidal ideation, psychosis, cognitive decline, even dementia showing up at alarming levels. The study analyzed data from the CDC's own Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, VAERS, comparing outcomes linked to COVID injections against traditional flu shots. Data going back decades here, and according to the findings, 86 separate neuropsychiatric symptoms popped up. So things like depression, delusions, cognitive impairment, psychotic symptoms, and severe behavioral disturbances appearing far more frequently in the COVID vaccinated compared to the flu shots. It's crazy. So when grouped together, we see large spikes in cognitive disorders, psychiatric conditions, and extreme behavioral outcomes combined. So after reading Declassified Intelligence Programs, Project Artichoke, openly discussing chemical methods like injections meant to change emotions, stability, motivation, and behavior, and then we see reports about neurological and psychological effects following the mass injections, you got to ask yourself, if Project Artichoke is an ongoing program live and in full effect. But it wasn't just Operation Warp Speed that lobotomized the people en masse. Project Artichoke also mentioned aerosols being used, airborne delivery without the public even knowing. And during the Cold War, as I went over in a previous show, we now have documentation showing it actually happened right here in Western Canada and in many places in the States. Declassified records show the U.S. Army sprayed zinc cadmium sulfide over Winnipeg decades back, a compound containing cadmium which is classified as a carcinogen. Hundreds of thousands of civilians were exposed. The public, even local officials, were told it was harmless defense research. That's right, people, safe and effective just like the shots. The explanation was that they were studying how cities might respond to a Soviet attack. Yeah, right. Later documents showed the real objective was tracking how radioactive fallout and chemical agents would move through populated areas after deployment. This didn't just happen in Winnipeg either. Similar tests were done in Alberta as well, involving coordination between the US, Canada, and the UK. In some cases, without full disclosure to Canadian federal authorities. Yeah, like, thanks, Americans. They just flew here and sprayed carcinogens all over us. The great USA. And the particles were microscopic and odorless, they say, designed to travel deep into the respiratory system so researchers could measure how they spread through real populations. Documents even show they wanted to expand testing with radioactive materials and nerve agents while keeping an eye on nearby hospitals in case exposure produced medical fallout. It's almost like setting up 5G towers, and then monitoring nearby hospitals to see how many people get sick. Then they just call those sick patients COVID. Another thing in Project Artichoke is they also discussed introducing substances through food supplies, compounds meant to influence behavior and create a more manageable population over time. So not just injections and aerosols, but food as well. And when you look at modern food systems today, people already know chemicals, preservatives, GMOs have been linked to hormone disruption, chronic illness, neurological problems, and all kinds of long-term health issues we still don't fully understand. Look at what just happened recently with glyphosate. Trump just moved to shield manufacturers of glyphosate, the chemical used in products like Roundup, from legal liability tied to cancer claims. Instead of Congress passing protections through normal legislation, federal action was pushed that attempts to override state lawsuits and court rulings that previously allowed cancer victims to sue manufacturers. Many courts have already ruled glyphosate exposure contributed to cancer diagnosis. Yet Trump's latest move here protects the companies pushing cancer-causing agents onto the public. What does that sound like? The COVID shots. They were rolled out under Operation Warp Speed and were also covered by federal liability shields through the PrEP Act, meaning manufacturers were shielded from lawsuits too. Glyphosate is tied to massive corporations with deep influence. Lawmakers talked about liability protection for months, but this progress was stalled, so federal action moved anyway. Trump came through with an executive order here. Protections from the companies moved forward. What does that tell you? So now they can poison you with aerosols, injections, and food, and you can't do a damn thing about it. Thanks, Trump. Now, glyphosate exposure isn't only linked to cancer. Get this, studies have linked it to neurological effects too. Once again, Project Artichoke playing out here. Brain inflammation, oxidative stress, damage at the cellular level where mitochondria stop functioning properly, which is linked to neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Some findings suggest exposure can interfere with neurotransmitters, affecting how the brain actually communicates, contributing to memory issues, cognitive decline, anxiety-like behavior, and problems regulating mood. So now you're not just talking about a weed killer sitting on crops, you're looking at a chemical that's been linked to long-term effects on brain function through everyday food and environmental exposure. And when you go back and read programs like Project Artichoke talking about introducing substances through normal consumption to influence stability, motivation, and behavior, people start seeing the connections here between Cold War research programs and modern-day large-scale chemical exposure. You really think this is all by accident? Silent weapons for quiet wars, people. Just a few weeks ago, remember the Department of Defense went on X and openly acknowledged they have directed energy weapons, not buried in a report or filtered through a leak, their own account. They said the systems exist and they're being scaled as part of the future battlefield. Israel's openly testing out lasers as seen right here. So yeah, DEWs clearly exist and they are being used, which is terrifying considering this tech is not just used to stop missiles, okay? We know this tech can be used to cause serious neurological symptoms as well. Really think about this, okay? Because the timing is so ridiculous. All of these headlines suddenly popping up talking about Earth's heartbeat spiking. That's right. Check the title right here. Spike in Earth vibrations could be scrambling brains with bizarre ringing noise. Really now? So the same tech that was admittedly used on the Venezuelan military, the symptoms the military described happening to them is now happening to many other people as well. So what are they going to blame this on? Well, get this. They're saying there's an electromagnetic hum that's being created by lightning 60 miles up. I'm like, what? The Schumann resonance. They're saying there's an electromagnetic hum and it's being created by lightning in the atmosphere. This is what they say. Okay, that lightning strikes around the world create electromagnetic waves, and those waves bounce between Earth's surface and the ionosphere, which is a layer of the atmosphere about 60 miles up. Does that make sense to you? This is what's causing ringing in people's ears, scrambling people's brains, lightning, as if it's some kind of new phenomenon. The Schumann resonance, which is sitting at 7.83 hertz. They said last month in February, their readings were extremely elevated, rising above 5 many times last month, which they say fall into geomagnetic storm territory and is strong enough to interfere with satellites, radio systems, and power infrastructure. I really think they're planning to shut down the grid here or something, or cause serious mental problems in people, and they want to blame some random electromagnetic hum from space. Because get this, in the same article, they talk about neurological symptoms that come with this. People are reporting ringing in the ears, brain fog, and sleep disruption. Remember I spoke a few podcasts ago about exploding head syndrome? Yeah, they want us to believe that's normal. Just a normal sleep disorder right there called exploding head syndrome, But could all this stuff be connected? Theta brain waves operate between 4 and 8 hertz during the transition into sleep, and the main Schumann frequency sits directly inside that range. So they're saying this is why people are reporting insomnia and neurological symptoms right now. It's totally space doing it, okay? Lightning striking 60 miles up or something like that. Yeah, it's not the 5G towers on every corner. Nope. It's not the mass injections of graphene that connect your brain into the cloud. Look, I'm not sure if I need a new segment on this one right here, but I really was thinking about it, like dumbass of the week or something, moron of the century, something like that. Because when I read this story, I'm like, bro, You gotta be kidding me. US officials investigated a previously undisclosed experiment in Norway in which a government scientist tested a microwave device on himself and developed neurological symptoms, resembling what has been described in Havana syndrome. Norway informed the CIA after this guy did this, and the Pentagon and White House sent officials to the area to investigate. Okay, they did multiple visits because of this. That's right, a Norwegian scientist suffered brain damage after testing an audio or microwave-based device on himself. I mean, I don't want to sound rude, but like, I'm sure there were many other ways you could have tested that weapon, okay? Imagine doing a study on like how bad COVID vaccines are and using yourself as a guinea pig, you know, injecting yourself with 20 shots in an hour just to see what happens. Look, I'm just saying, the US government are admitting they will use direct energy weapon systems to accomplish whatever it is. They openly said it. And now reports of people around the world suffering from neurological symptoms. The same time, they're blaming atmospheric electromagnetic spikes, which are directly affecting human brainwave frequencies. Headlines saying, oh yeah, you know, just some weather phenomenon scrambling people's brains. Blaming lightning trapped in the atmosphere. Yeah, how long has lightning existed? But suddenly it's a problem, scrambling people's brains, turning people's brains into omelets. Now, what happened in Mexico, people? I mean, what happened just a few weeks ago? At first, you thought it was like Mad Max playing out, like, oh, Mexico has descended into total hell. It's over for Mexico, okay? The cartels have taken over and people are not going to survive long over there. Psy-op or Psy-Slop? Well, people, the same city that's hosting the FIFA World Cup in just a few months, they just had some coordinated chaos take place. Buildings burned, cars left torched, airports shut down, and for a moment it really looked like Mexico was about to descend into full Mad Max mode overnight. And this was all because allegedly the US government provided intelligence to the Mexican military that led to the killing of one of the most powerful cartel bosses on earth, CGNG leader Nemesio El Mencho. I'm not going to try pronouncing his last name. I won't even do that, okay? I'm going to have a lot of people, because of this segment, reach out to me. Bro, that's not how you pronounce it. I don't care. But how bad was it, though, in Mexico, okay? All those car fires and buildings on fire. I don't know. Look, I've seen more fires during the 2010 Vancouver riots when the Canucks lost. I'm just saying. It's crazy how you can make a city look like it's collapsing with just a few cars scattered all around and lit on fire, you know? Then taking a picture from a roof of the city, you know, the scene can easily give many the illusion that the entire city is falling apart. It's almost like a typical CIA strategy here, you know? Perfect theater. Set a few cars and buildings on fire around the city, and it actually does look like the city is collapsing. What people online were watching looked like total national collapse. Airports permanently shut and tourists trapped. Entire cities supposedly under siege. Mexico turning into fallout overnight. Then within a day, flights resumed, roads reopened, and daily life pushed forward again, okay? And while the internet kept melting down using footage that wasn't even current, that's right, old videos were being recycled over and over again, just like the Iran stuff. It's driving me crazy. I'm on Twitter trying to find footage for this show, and it's all old footage. No fact checks, nothing. A lot of AI videos as well. The same thing in Mexico. Random fires reposted as breaking news. Old AI imagery too, spreading faster than actual reporting. Panic travels faster than facts every single time. It really makes you wonder if this was just a beta test for what's going to happen later in Mexico. Remember, it's always a push and pull method. First, they do something small, gauge the public's reaction, then they come in and finish the mission. And the retaliation itself raised eyebrows because this didn't look like scattered criminals reacting emotionally. Roadblocks appeared almost immediately across multiple regions. Everything looked highly coordinated. Heavy weapons showing up fast enough to suggest planning already existed before the operation even happened. Cartel fighters are looking like the military over here too. I can't even tell which is which. Reports going back years show cartel ammunitions traced back to U.S. sources. Okay, a lot of their guns are U.S. made, including 50 caliber rounds designed for battlefield use. Equipment capable of piercing armored vehicles and destabilizing aircraft. Criminal organizations fighting with tools normally associated with organized armed forces. Mexican officials themselves have demanded investigations into how U.S. military-grade weapons keep ending up in cartel hands. Reports showing Mexico's Defense Department seizing belt-fed machine guns, grenade launchers, and rocket launchers from cartel groups, weapons never sold on the civilian market and restricted to military use. Since 2018 alone, Mexican forces report confiscating hundreds of fully automatic machine guns, along with dozens of grenade and rocket systems, equipment powerful enough to fight army units, not just local police. Cartels openly flossing their arsenals online here. Armored vehicles rolling through rural areas. I really thought they looked like military. This is insane. Drones dropping explosives. Fighters dressed in tactical gear looking like paramilitary units. Mexican leadership has repeatedly raised the issue directly with Washington, asking how weapons tied to U.S. military supply chains continue crossing into cartel territory. Officials talk about missing stockpiles, black market diversion, Cold War weapons circulating through Central America. Take a look at this footage right here and tell me what you see. What do these guys look like? It's insane. You're not looking at street gangs working on their own here, okay? They are clearly funded and supplied by the deep state, and anyone who watched what happened in Syria can recognize the similarities. Groups suddenly appearing fully equipped with advanced weapon systems, American origin hardware showing up inside conflicts officially described as unrelated to US operations, just like how Trump is now arming the Kurds to fight the Iranian regime. It's the same thing happening in Mexico, different continent, same optics, okay? Now what's really happening here is the US has funded and is still funding the cartels in Mexico. They use criminal organizations like this to carry out the most grotesque crimes against humanity imaginable. If the cartels were truly on a US hit list, and if they were genuinely a threat, they would have been drone striked into oblivion. The truth is, since the Iran-Contra scandal, they've been funding these groups all along. Because Iran-Contra showed the template in plain sight. The US wanted the Contras armed in Nicaragua. Money pipelines got dirty, and cocaine trafficking networks tied to that world kept operating while the machine pretended not to notice. Because the bigger mission mattered more than the bodies on the street. Fast forward, and you keep hearing the same type of horror stories attached to cartel power. So the US, the deep state, have been funding them so they can pull off some of the most satanic things imaginable. Like the headline about a female cartel member, La Diabla, getting busted for running horrific baby trafficking and organ harvesting rings. Stories about an insidious baby trafficking operation where cartels lure pregnant women, do illegal C-sections, and sell newborn babies. And the same politicians who make laws about your children are the same ones who bought trafficked children from the cartels based on age and preference. This is truly some sick stuff that you don't even know what to say anymore, okay? Like El Mencho, he kept a list of 221 global leaders, including the United States, who placed orders for trafficked children. And somehow, we're supposed to believe the real scandal is always somewhere else. This is the reason for the open borders. There's a reason all of this is happening. I just saw a map the other day showing the caves in America versus disappearing people. There's something going on really, really twisted here, and it does all connect. And if you want receipts for the way intelligence work has intersected with drug cartels in the past, I mean, people point to the story where the CIA recruited a Venezuelan military officer to help them ship 22 tons of cocaine into American cities with the excuse that it was an operation and it got out of hand, okay? They didn't expect this to happen. Like, that makes it better. And then there's the broader Venezuela agenda that people bring up, okay? That the cartel of the Suns disappeared once it lost its utility to the CIA and was resurrected by the US government when it began targeting Venezuela. Same exact revolving door system, okay? Same convenient enemies, same useful criminals, same war on drugs theater, and the demons in charge keep eating either way. They fund some of the worst people imaginable to carry out crimes against humanity. Somebody keeps that pipeline open long enough for these organizations to function like hybrid armies rather than drug traffickers. Once groups reach that stage, instability is clearly by design here, and They want conflict zones around Mexico. It's the same thing every time. A power vacuum usually leads to more violence and bloodshed, which gives the US a reason to justify more involvement. Think about Iraq, think about Syria, even Iran. When leadership structures get destabilized, the chaos that follows creates the political cover for the DICs to step in and expand operations. And Mexico isn't operating in isolation here, okay? This didn't happen inside a vacuum. Across Latin America over the past several months, the same pattern kept appearing. Intelligence cooperation with Washington is expanding again. The DEA is back in countries that pushed them out years ago. Colombia ramped up anti-narco strikes right after meetings in Washington. Bolivia reopened cooperation after nearly 2 decades of distancing itself from U.S. enforcement agencies. Ecuador requested direct U.S. military assistance as cartel violence escalated internally. Venezuela has seen renewed U.S. targeting of leadership tied to drug networks. One country after another is shifting towards deeper security partnerships and tighter operational coordination. Now, flashback to January 8th, 2026, Trump publicly said the cartels were effectively running Mexico and openly talked about hitting cartel targets on land. That wasn't subtle. And then 1 month later, one of the most powerful cartel leaders in the world is taken out, reportedly with the US intelligence support. Anyone who studies this knows removing a centralized figure doesn't calm things down overnight. It creates fragmentation, turf fights, and retaliation. More chaos is incoming. That outcome wasn't a surprise. After the chaos, deeper US involvement starts looking more acceptable to the public. More joint operations, more intelligence sharing. More instability takes place. Instability becomes the justification for expanding control. Financial and political players have already been meeting regional leaders discussing infrastructure and digital ID systems, okay? BlackRock was involved. Crisis always accelerates those conversations. Isn't that kind of interesting? Always. When violence spreads, governments move in. Monitoring increases. Cross-border enforcement expands. The drug trade keeps running, but the security architecture grows around it. Look, they knew retaliation would happen. They knew it, but the real question is what they intend to build once the dust settles. From Ukraine, the entire Middle East, Mexico, places in South America. I mean, the debt accumulating in Western nations as well. The collapse is multifaceted. It's happening around the world, and there's different methods to it. They are engineering the collapse. Make no mistake, this is the Build Back Better agenda in full effect. And that's where I'm going to leave it, folks. If you like what I do here, if you want to support this channel, it is greatly appreciated if you hit those links in the description. Everything you see here is done by myself. It takes a lot of effort to put one of these together. So if you appreciate the effort that goes into just one of these, please consider hitting those links in the description. For ways to support, please become a monthly subscriber on Patreon or a Subscribestar. It'll greatly help the show. Purchase the Eyes Wide Open coffee. Links are in the description. Crypto wallets are in the description. P.O. Box is in the description if you want to send me mail. Until next time, folks, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the Eyes is Watching channel, signing off.